The Walther CCP M2, let's check it out. In 2014, Walther introduced their CCP. It was a 9mm single stack firearm, and it has that ergonomics of Walther, which has become their trademark. I mean, it is one of the most ergonomic pistols out there. One of the things though was the original CCP, the takedown was atrocious, and it required a proprietary tool, and it was one of the downfalls of the CCP. Now they've introduced the CCP M2, which is a toolless takedown. It's fairly easy, but one of the things about this handgun in particular is that it has the gas delayed blowback, very similar to the HK P7. It makes it very soft shooting, but it still has the fixed barrel blowback design, which is very accurate. Walther got in touch with me a few weeks ago and sent this pistol early so we could release it during the release date. And I really appreciate Walther for sending the CCP M2. Now, when the CCP M2 first arrived, I looked it over and I thought, what's the difference? I mean, it's almost identical on the outside from the standard CCP. And we'll take a look at that in just a second. But I mean, it's pretty much exterior-wise the same handgun. Really the only difference between the two, right here you have M2 CCP at the bottom of the grip. Otherwise, none of the markings are any different. And I think that's because, you know, they're not going to necessarily continue to offer the standard CCP. And so first thing I'm going to do is make sure the gun is unloaded, drop the magazine, check the chamber. You do get an 8-round stainless steel magazine, very good quality. Again, this is a single stack, has a nice little polymer finger pad on the bottom. One of the things that Walther is known for is just the great ergonomics, and you can see the way this is just molded. It looks the way it feels, very comfortable. I mean, you just place your hand, it's like somebody took a bar of clay and you just kind of squeezed it and made it into the perfect grip. And that's one of the trademarks of Walther, and whether it's their PPQ or any of their guns, they're just super ergonomic. This is a black Cerakote finish over stainless steel. So it's a very nice, smooth finish to it. It does come in the raw stainless steel, which is a brushed stainless steel, and this is the original CCP. And here, you know, just looking at it, there are just no differences on the exterior. All the differences are actually with the way that these firearms are disassembled. And so one thing you'll notice right here at the back is there's a different setup. Now with the Walther, and because we've got it already, the striker indicator here means that it's cocked. And once we pull the trigger, it just disappears. We don't have that on the standard CCP. But you'll notice the way that this comes up, and there's a little bit of a silver mark here. And it's part of the way that this is disassembled. And typically I wait toward the end of the video to disassemble, but that is one of the biggest features or advantages of the M2 over the standard. This requires a tool, a proprietary tool from Walther. It's kind of a long cylinder piece, and it pushes that little silver piece up and through, and guys, I'll tell you, it's kind of a pain. Now here's the kicker. I can't find my tool for that. I've got to get online and order another one. And that's really a problem because, if you lose that tool, you can't disassemble your firearm correctly. And so I do have some video where I showed the disassembly, and I'm going to show it right here, just getting it started. First thing we'll do is make sure the gun isn't loaded. We have to disengage the striker, so go ahead and pull the trigger. Take your small tool, and right here there's a little lip, and it corresponds underneath the little silver part right here in the back of the slide. Here we take, and it goes up under and pushes in like so. Now once it's depressed, you can just pretty much pull the slide up and it'll come right off. And then we just pull everything out. Now I'm going to show you how easy it is with the new M2. First we're going to drop the magazine, check to make sure the gun isn't loaded. Right here at this back area, you can take your index finger or thumb and you just depress. And once you do, you take this little bar at the bottom and move it over to the right. And that releases the back part of what holds in your striker. Then we bring our slide back and then up. And then it just comes right out. And then you can see here this spring with your slide, and this is where the striker and all that is. We're going to leave that in for right now. But here we have our recoil spring over our barrel, which this is your typical fixed barrel design. And so we're going to go ahead and remove the spring. The tension on this spring is a lot less than your standard recoil spring, and that is going to help with pulling the slide back, and it'll also help with recoil. But we'll also, one thing you'll notice is this piston. This is not your guide rod, because really your barrel acts as your guide rod. This is your delayed gas blowback piston. And inside, under the barrel, right here, we have a chamber. And so what happens is when you fire around, right when it gets past the chamber, there is a hole in the barrel that forces gases into that chamber. And what those gases do, it delays the action of the slide. So as the gas pours in, it holds the slide in place, but then it forces it back. And so that's where the soft recoil system comes in. It just allows for a lot of the expenditure of the gas to happen before the slide comes back, and then again allows for a less powerful spring to be on the barrel. So it's a really cool system. Now this is very similar to the HK P7, which had the same kind of system with the piston. The one downside though that I've seen with this is that it can get a little hot, this area right here. And so we shot about 300 rounds and it started really to get fairly warm. Now it wasn't super uncomfortable, but it was definitely warmer than, you knew that it was a little bit different than most of the guns that you're firing. But that's pretty much all you do to field strip the pistol right there. But again, this fixed barrel, because there's no movement, makes this a very accurate handgun as we've seen. But with the delayed blowback gas system, it makes it a softer shooting gun, because most of your standard fixed barrel blowbacks can be a little snappy, and that's kind of eliminated with this. So it's a really cool system, very different than most of what you're seeing out on the market. Now to reassemble, you take your spring, and here behind the camera it's going to be a little more difficult, but what we're going to do is take that barrel and the spring, and we're going to kind of bring it up into the slide, and yet allow our piston to kind of hang down so it will fit into the hole right here. And again, behind the camera it's a little tough. We're going to see if we can just get it to fit over into that barrel. There it goes. And once you do, it's in place. And then we take back here, this spring will typically kind of pop out a little bit. Just bring it, set it right there. Now we're going to bring this down and depress it, and then that little bar will automatically slip over. So we're ready to go, and as you can see, the gun is functioning. Now the disassembly is definitely a little more complex than a lot of your striker fire polymer pistols. But I think for the advantages you're getting with the soft recoil system, with the ease of bringing back the slide, and just the less felt recoil, I think that it's really worth it if that's what you're looking for. It's not that much different. And this is excellent for first-time shooters, for females, those with weak hand strength, the elderly, but still a very viable choice for any shooter. It is a kind of a glass-filled nylon polymer, very finely finished, squared off trigger guard, has a nice undercut right here, so you're able to get your hand up high. The grip has nice palm swells all the way through it. It does have a slight finger groove here. Of course, that deep undercut and then right here. But there's something about it that just seems to mold into your hand. The texturing seems to be a little more aggressive than the PPQ, but I just checked the CCP standard and it was about the same. Also, you have a Picatinny rail. It's 3 slots. That's for a single stack 9mm, which is definitely a bonus. A lot of your single stacks don't have that. You have your slide stop, which is also a slide release. And we have our manual safety on the outside, and of course red means fire. Now when it comes to the slide, number one, we have really high serrations, and they're on the front and rear. And what that does is it keeps them from just being right here in this area. I mean, it's a really tall way to grab, so wherever you grab, it's really easy to grab. Now we have our 3-dot sights, and one of the things I want to mention about the sights, to me, when I was down at the range, it was a little dark and a little bit rainy. I had a hard time really picking up these sights as well as I have some others. They are polymer, and you know, they can be switched out. There's a number of different companies that make sights for these, and that's one of the great things about the M2 is that the standard CCP has been around since, again, 2014. So you're going to have a lot of aftermarket support, whether it's holsters or sights, extra magazines, things like that. Now the trigger pull is one thing we definitely want to check. The original CCP, at least mine, it was a little bit gritty. They upgraded that pretty soon after with MP3 finish on the parts, which made it very slick. The gun is unloaded. We're going to check the trigger pull. Just a little bit of take up. It's kind of loose here, and then it starts to stack just a little bit. Then a nice crisp snap. I mean, it's a crisp, clean break. Reset, though, is fairly long. Comes all the way out to about right there. So it's not much farther. That little slack is where the reset comes up to. And then it's back. I didn't have a lot of trouble with outrunning the reset, but I did do it a couple of times, especially when I was firing rapidly. It seemed like I would hesitate just a little bit because I was firing it, and I was trying to short stroke it. But it wasn't too bad, and I released and just pulled again, and it fired. And you'll notice that a couple of times in the shooting sequence. Let's check our trigger pull weight using the Lyman trigger gauge from Brownells. 4 pounds, 14.9 ounces. 4 pounds, 12.8 ounces. And now, according to Walther, the trigger pull is 5.5 pounds, so I think we're getting quite a bit better, and it's a pretty smooth trigger. Now, as far as bore axis, let's bring out our Glock, and it has a very low bore axis. It gives us a good gauge. Right about there, so you can see that it is a little bit higher here, about the height of the sight, but really because of the way this has the recoil system in it, it makes it fairly flat shooting, which is typical for most of your low bore axis handguns. We're using some Fiocchi 115 grain full metal jacket. I want to thank Fiocchi for sponsoring the ammo. And the great thing is I had a couple of extra magazines from the original CCP, so it's going to make things a little nicer. But don't let the name fool you with Fiocchi. This ammunition is made in the USA. In fact, we're going to talk about it because of some of the quality features with this ammunition. It's good stuff.
Guys, at the range, it was very flat shooting as promised. Very similar to the CCP, the original, and just a great feel to it. And of course, the ergonomics, it gives you a really good feel in your hand. I mean, while you're firing it, you feel like you have control over it. And so we really had a great range day. No malfunctions whatsoever, which I wasn't expecting any. The trigger is improved, and it does make a difference when firing. But I'll tell you one thing about it, and it does get hot. And it has to do with that gas coming back into the frame, really, right there at what the recoil guide rod. And so if you're not careful, it can get a little warm when you're shooting it a lot. We shot about 300 rounds through it, and it was getting pretty hot there toward the end. But the HKP7 does the same thing. It gets pretty warm, but not unbearably warm, and it wasn't any problem while shooting. Of course, one of the big things, and I've shown this earlier, was the accuracy. At 7 yards, it was just one hole. I moved it on back to 15 yards and still had a really nice group. So, you know, the sight picture, it's a little dark. Even though it's a 3-dot, at least where I was shooting and under the trees, I was not able to pick up the 3-dot as well as I have with some. It's a pretty small dot. And then polymer sights, but you know, they're aftermarket sights to go with these, and because they've been around since 2014, that's going to give you a little bit of a bump there, and with holsters and things like that. But the trigger pull to me was better, but range day was excellent, even though I was dodging raindrops most of the time. The weight on the CCP M2, 1 pound 6.2 ounces, which is 22.2 ounces. Pistol's 6.4 inches in length, it's 5.1 inches in height, and it's 1.18 inches in width, and that is including the controls. But it's still a very thin handgun. Comes in a nice hard plastic box, foam padding, which protects the gun. You get an extra 8-round magazine, chamber flag, bore brush. It comes with a couple of different height front sights and some Allen wrenches and a small tool. A Walther safety lock, also the owner's manual and other paperwork, and you have your registration card, and one of the things that Walther offers is what they call legendary lifetime warranty on it. Cool beans! The retail price on Walther's website is $469. I did see it in a number of places for around $370. That's a great price for what you're getting. Now, if you're looking for a single stack 9mm for everyday carry, you know, there are a lot of great choices out there, whether it's the Smith & Wesson Shield, the Glock Model 43, even the Walther PPS M2, and others. A couple of things that the CCP has going for it, of course, is the superior ergonomics, and it really feels good in the hand. The delayed gas blowback is going to make this a soft shooting gun, but then with the fixed barrel, it's going to give you really tremendous accuracy. The front slide serrations, there are just a lot of cool things about it. Again, we live in the golden age of firearm. There's a lot of choices, and guys, it's just up to your preference. But I would highly recommend at least taking a look at the CCP M2. It's excellent. Be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic. If you're really looking for something that it is really a joy. Who is that? Did I say this was a great choice for everyday carry? Well, it is.